don't think there's ever been like a historical society in town that's like, since Irene, that has focused on Westford. There was a group back in the 1970s that formed to save the covered bridge because half of the roof was falling down. It was really in disarray. And then it needed to be done again, and we reestablished in early 1990s, thereabouts. It was like 20 years later. We decided to really get it done right. So that was what our both establishing of the historical societies did, was work on the covered bridge. And then we started focusing on, well, let's get a home, because we started acquiring a few things. And we still have things around in people's houses that, we had no places to store them. There was a man that was with us that when he passed away, he left us his house. And we unfortunately sold the house, and we sat on our money for a while, and eventually, I'll skip a whole bunch of stuff, but this piece of property became available. This was the site of the original blacksmith shop, which is down here. What do we need a blacksmith shop for? Oh, come on. That was in 1863 that it was built. So we copied it as much as possible. It's pretty much like it was. And we're pretty happy with it. We're fortunate to have a great builder here in town that did a really good job on it. Here we are, and now we're waiting to finish it off this year. Put all of our collections together. Beers map from 1869, and all these colored places are school districts.
My house from the Pokies, you lived here?
Okay, so you're on Old Stage Road. So
Yes.
you're up in this area.
Oh, awesome.
Here somewhere is where you each district has its own schoolhouse and teacher, and the teachers could not be married back then, and they were put up in homes, different homes around the areas, and each family had to supply wood for the school too. And we have a school desk, and you had your chalkboard that the kids would use. And we got another one that was given to us that has like advertising around the edge and stuff. It's really kind of cool.
Oh, interesting.
But back then, the kids learned needlework. We do have a book upstairs, meaning where we have our stuff stored, that has samples of the needlework.
Oh, yes.
That they did. This here, working one-handed is tough.
Oh,
This coffin, which will be put back together, was made for a little boy who was very sick at the time. He lived up the road, and he made it.
yeah.
He lived.
Okay, good.
So they put the coffin in the barn, and we kept hearing about it. And then when the man passed away, I asked the daughter, I said, "Don't forget about that coffin. I really like that coffin."
Yeah, nice.
He showed up in my dooryard one day. So, yeah, we'll get it put back together. It's got the lid and everything. Actually, I think that is the lid there. Carry a bucket of water.
Oh,
Put
nice.
this around your neck, and you carry water buckets on either end. It's from the 1800s. And you have that's where you put your ballot in. The town clerks gave it to us. Just some old pieces, cowbell, nice little vanity set. And all this here was for the Westford, what was it called? Westford Cornet Band. This was pretty much the beginning of the Westford Fairfax Band. Depending on what town you're in, your name goes first. So we call it the Westford Fairfax. I'd say 1890s, 1900. Black and white down the bottom is even older than the large one. And unfortunately, nobody's ever written anything about them. And we have a spinning wheel.
Wow, it's huge.
This was called the big wheel. I wonder why.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a mid-1800s trunk. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
It's up inside. And then we've written the history of it. And somebody lined it with cedar. And was using it. Pretty good with my left hand. And this is from a parade back in 1912. Here's our building.
Oh, nice.
And here. And, this is the house on the corner here. And you just can't see our building there. But that's our building back in 1912. Oh, our poor dead kid. Dead child.
Oh, the
kid.
child.
Yeah, he was a year old when he passed away. Not many of the kids lived to very old. Oh, goodness. Sewing machine, they did stuff up nice back then.
Oh, yes.
Now look at that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
You got all your bobbins and stuff inside. Just goes up to this little cabinet. And this is the store that's down at the end there. It was built in 1850. Three guys came up to find a place for an IGA store, and it ran until the early 2000s when the man retired and nobody wanted it.
And now we have that store over there.
Yes, now we have that store over there. But this is our fighting chaplain. He's on the statue up there. That was done in, I think that was also 1912 that they put that up for him too after the Civil War. But during the Civil War, he was known as the fighting chaplain, and he preached up at the White Building up there. This is, I hear, the only Civil War monument in Vermont that is of an actual person. So it kind of makes it, pretty special for us. It was a gift from John and Henry, or Heman Allen. And that John Allen is father of Irene. And these were pews up in the brick meeting house that they took apart eventually, when they stopped using the church. Either cut up or left in threes like this. Church seats. This one came from the Congregational Church. And the little one back there, there's big versions too. There's several around. We've got quite a few more coming to us.
Oh, nice.
But that was from the Knights of Pythias building. All these, when they disbanded, they either went to the Congregational Church or to the library building. And that's Irene's chair. Oh. We want to talk about Irene, right? She wrote a lot of the history from the 1960s on, and we have several of her publications over in town. These are notes and histories. She wrote on everything, like flyers from places and stuff. She would write on the back of them. She has it all down. But yes, she went through and she wrote notes. She wrote diaries, which we are. There's a couple of women that are working on the diaries that she did back in 1913 is when these diaries were done, when this diary was done. 1913 to, I think it was terrible. I can't even remember. Maybe it was 2013. She wrote all the way through the years. What did it say? The 26th. Snow and wind, fixed horse barn and cleaned it. That's what they did today, part of what they did today. But so she wrote down the history. There's been several editions in the 1800s, different publishers, the Hemingways, and I can't pull them all out of my head right now, but different publications would come out of histories of towns. And she continued it on into the 1960s things that would happen in town, you know, when the first car came to town, when electricity was put in, and so there was, like the 1948, 1970, different stuffs important things that were happening through town. So we can thank her for that, and then she's got little snippets of how to try lard. See, this is written by Irene in 1963. See, the husband gave like the church lands in front of the church where the statue is, and part of this, and then his wife gave part of it, and there was another man who gave this end of it. Now this is 1825, so it's early 1800s, and the UVM group said that this was a quintessential town green, that really hadn't changed, and we keep fighting to keep it this way. Late 1990s, late 1990s, that went in. Yeah, other than that, you're around this common here. You're looking at Westford back in the 1800s. What, were you going to take a picture? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, show the dirty corner of it.
No, actually.
So much.
Wait, so you designed it and printed it out?
Pardon?
You designed it and printed it out?
Well, actually, I drew the picture, and then the library had them done up, and the company, I have one that's got the tag, and the company is still in existence.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But, thanks. Yeah. I was thinking we should have a bag made for this place, too. But yeah, we're kind of excited to start putting things up, and, what are we going to put where, and what are we going to do with things? So it'll be fun. Oh, Irene did this book too. There was several.
Oh, she did that book too?
Yeah, she did this one. Yeah, we got all the notes and all these. Have you seen this one? Okay. Sugar House. We hear, and I know we've got an article about it, but Gerard Cairn was one of the first ones that used tubing when we were collecting sap.
All those blue tubes. All those like blue tubes?
Yep.
Through the forest?
Yep, for collecting sap.
Cool.
We hear he was one of the first ones that did it. We've never heard anything about this.
Oh man, what is that?
That's down on 128 also. Warner's Money Chest. We also hear there's they call it the ice cave up on, pretty far out on Brookside, but you could stick your hand in this cave and it's like really cold in there, cold air. But, I think that's past history. We're never going to find anything about it. Yeah, some of these histories that are written up of Westford are pretty funny. Yeah, it's we really don't have any more really old people in town. I can't think of any that are left. Yeah, so Irene did all this stuff.
Makes sense.
It's, good job for Irene.
Yeah.
That is Westford. I kind of like it. They've forgotten about us out here. Route 15 between Underhill and Cambridge. Westford, put us on the map for something good.
My name is Nick Hopkins.
Levi.
Tim.
My name's Jack,
Sylvia.
and I went to Westford School. It's pretty good. I feel like maybe the grading's a little bit harsh, but not as harsh as it can be. They're all pretty good. Fleming, it felt more like a bigger school than Westford did. And overall, I felt like it was a little bit better. They had a lot more stuff. They had its own cafeteria. I'd say like some of the teachers were really good. It was very good in general. Like playground and stuff like that was very good.
What's your favorite memory of growing up in Westford going to school?
Probably the people I met. Like lunch was very fun because we did a bunch of crazy stuff. Overall, it was like really fun.
Sucked. I hated it.
It was a very small school.
Everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, it was a little boring. I was there for 10 years.
No.
It was a small school, so we kind of like had more one-on-one time with the teachers. So like we had more expectations kind of, but we didn't have any homework, so that was good.
Oh, yo!
So I gained no
barely
social like socialness from Westford because I was the same f***ing people for 10 years. I also
No.
gained
So annoying.
anxiety going to big places with a lot of people because it was such a small
Social
goddamn
anxiety,
school.
yeah. I think a lot of people have anxiety.
I did gain a better education though. Of Westford? Probably
How the hell did you
graduating because I know I was f***ing done with that place.
In Virginia, 7th grade, and then 8th grade in Westford. Westford's smaller. You don't really have homework in Westford unless you don't finish your work in class. Well, when I was there, they had a lot of, I don't know, they had stuff, but like my brother, Samuel, he goes to Westford, and they like, I don't know, all the teachers left or something like that.
Who's your favorite teacher from Westford?
Mr. Goss,
Aw. What's your favorite memory of Westford?
Goggle ball, or sledding.
Yeah, I do. I'll give it to you, of course. Thank you. Okay, so
Where's my payment?
I'll give you your payment once you do. Where do you live, Sam?
Westford,
Where do you used to live, Sam?
Hong Kong.
Describe your transition from like a different country to this like silly little place.
I hate it.
Why?
I'm putting flash on for you big.
Everything is so far apart and dumb. The infrastructure is so terrible. I have to drive, like, if I want to go to a grocery store, I have to drive like 30 minutes. In Hong Kong, I walk 5 minutes. When I lived in Hong Kong, I didn't see grass for 2 years. Yeah, more nature. Just zero grass. And all the trees were on mountains, large hills. Oh, wait, no. You gotta edit all of that out. Will you f*** off? I'm trying to do an interview.
Give the true Westford experience.
The people are very nice, and everyone speaks good English. Everyone is so dumb though. There's a girl in my history class, and she didn't know where Spain is. She thought it was in South America. I don't know how a country can be so great and the people so stupid.
Why did you move to Vermont?
My dad works for the U.S. government.
You want half a loaf of bread? I got half a loaf of bread. From yesterday? Well, for a while there, I was tossing pizzas at a pizzeria. How did I start with it? Yeah. I was an idiot.
You were?
Well, I still am. But, I don't know, I failed out of college a couple times, and I got in trouble with the law. So the only job I could get was in a restaurant. And that's who took me. A pizza person gave me a job. Said, hey, you can make pizza. I said, okay. So I did that for 12 years. I was making pizza. And I couldn't really find a way to make pizza. I couldn't find a way to get out or to be better, to separate myself from the other people in the field. So I heard about an apprenticeship, a bread apprenticeship from this world famous baker, Gerard Rabeau, and I found out about him through like a blog on the internet. And I wrote him a letter and I said, hey man, you know, I want to get better at bread, and maybe my pizza will get better, and maybe that'll set me apart in the market, and this is how I'll make money in my life. So he said I could come up here and do a 2-week stage, which is like a training period, like a trial period. You're either good enough to be the apprentice or you're not, and that's what that 2-week stage is for. And I flew up here from Florida. I did the stage, and he said I could be the apprentice, and I was all excited. And I sold everything, and a few weeks later I moved up here from Florida, and then I did my apprenticeship in the winter. I went from Florida, and there was like snow like up to here, I mean my waist, and yeah, it was cold. But yeah, so I did my apprenticeship, and that was about 4 months or so. And then after the apprenticeship, I went back into the pizza industry, and I kept trying to open a pizzeria or a bakery, but I couldn't get funding. I was poor, and no one would give me money to open a bakery. I didn't have any like ownership experience. And then I found out through the grapevine that Gerard, the guy I apprenticed under, he passed away. And when I heard about that, I got in contact with the people that owned this property, that owned the bakery, and I asked them what they were doing with it. They said it was just sitting here. So I was like, hey, I want to come and start the bread. So that's how I ended up here. Are you hearing me now?
Possibly.
This is the bench where you make the bread, like do the shaping. This used to be an old bowling alley. Oh, somebody put it here. Old Gerard did it, I guess. This is a mixing station. It's a little dusty flour, but whatever. This is a diving arm mixer, and this mixes all the dough, and this is like a spiral mixer, I think, and this just does the leaven. This one's really rough. It's the dough around, and this one's really soft. I'll show you how it works. This big one kind of mimics like a hand if you were going to hold the dough. It's here, and then it's kind of like we're mixed.
Oh, sick.
These two boxes here are the proofing boxes. So after the dough gets mixed, it proofs in these in these wooden boxes. And there's these little hinges here, and so this will fold over onto the bench, so the dough comes out and you just stir it out. I use some grain, and I use some flour, and that little machine there mills the grain into flour. This is the scale that I use. It's an old school balance scale. And you can kind of see there's little weights and things, and then the dough will go here. This is kind of how I weigh it out. This is a little reading sitting area. This is a hot room. It's just a room that's adjacent to the oven, so it's a couple degrees warmer than the outside here, and that way I can help speed up the bread fermentation. Just a couple degrees is a lot. And this is the oven. She's 11 feet by 9 feet inside. And she's kind of always hot. Like a shape of a pear, if you cut a pear in half. Like lengthwise? Lengthwise, yeah. She takes 10 days to fire and get it hot, and then if you don't fire it, it'll take 2 to 3 weeks to cool down. 100,000 pounds of brick. And the bread, when it proofs up, you can see here, it's called a proofing board, and these is called a couche, but it's a linen made of flax, and this dark color is beneficial bacteria.
I see. Awesome.
It's just over time it patinas, and so that the bread doesn't stick to the cloth. And you can kind of see where over time the boards get patinaed also from the loaves, so they'll lay like this.
Awesome.
And then this will come up like this, and so the loaves will, and then 9 of my loaves will fit to a board. And that is the quickest tour ever. Yeah, very short version of it.
How do you think you're going to represent the apprenticeship?
Oh man, I don't know. That was crazy. You know, because the apprenticeship was, 16-hour days, 6 days a week, unpaid, and you had to sleep in 3.5-hour intervals. You couldn't get 8 hours because you had to feed your sourdough starter, your leaven, every 4 hours. it was hell. Yeah, it was hard on the mind and the body. Gerard was not the nicest person. He was he's an old school French guy, and he was very straightforward. Definitely the things that how he treated the apprentices is old school, and I don't know if it's legal nowadays to treat people like that. Yeah, a lot of yelling and meanness, but he was very strict. Like when I sat down in a chair, I had to like sit straight up with my hands on my knees like that. Yeah, I couldn't like put my arm on the table or like lean over. It's like he wouldn't let me sit like that. Jeez.
Go over there. I remember he's on the logo.
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
So that's, I think it's B-O-W, could be Bow or Bow. And that was done by a professor at UVM.
I see.
Yeah, I called her up and I was like, hey, can I use this? And she said yes.
I see.
So that's why it's there. Yeah, when I was sitting here trying to think of a bread logo, I couldn't come up with one, but after a couple weeks of staring at that, I was like, I think it fits. I think it works. He was the head of Rossignol Skis for North America, and Rossignol used to have their like headquarters in Burlington or something. So that's why he was here. And then something happened with that, and went through. And then he went and had a couple of restaurants I heard in Burlington, named Gerard's, and then he opened this bakery. He used to live here. His daughter was raised here on this property. So that's how Gerard ended up here. He came for business. And then that's it, yeah. Supposedly Gerard had this philosophy about bread as a Japanese essence to it, where you do one thing over and over and over again and see how good you could become at this one thing. And the point behind it is, if you do more than one thing, if you do two things, and you have to split up your focus, you give 80% of your focus to this and 20% of your focus to that, and you'll never, because of that, you'll never find out how good you could possibly become. So if you do one single thing over and over and over and over and over again, then there's a possibility that you might become really good at it. Yeah, it's the bread I make is very difficult to execute. It's very simple, an idea. It's flour and water and a little bit of salt, but to make it really good, it's really hard to make it really good. So I'm just trying to do that. I'm trying to get better at it to where I've done it. I've actually made really good bread 5 times in the 3 years that I've been here, and I tracked that on an Excel sheet.
So where are the Excel sheet?
I have all my days, and let's see if I can get down to some nitty gritty. So here's kind of where I start like filling this out. No data, but I do all this, but I don't know, nothing comes of it. Like I haven't figured out anything. It doesn't show me anything. It doesn't help me at all. Every time I think it does, when I run the test again, the test proved that I didn't know. It did nothing. So I try not to think about that. I just take the data, and maybe later on in life, somebody smarter than me will be able to look at this and be like, oh, here's a trend in your dough, and here's something you can change that'll affect it. And I'm like, okay, good. But not me. And I think I'm on batch number like 1005 or something like that. And I've only made the good bread that I'm looking for 5 times out of 1,000 times. Because it tastes. Have you ever had tripe before you eat meat?
Tripe?
Yeah.
Is it a fish?
No, tripe is the stomach of a cow. It's kind of like a honeycomb structure.
Interesting.
And it's when it's cooked, certain way, techniques done correctly, it tastes, kind of has like a collagen feel. It's kind of gelatiny-ish, a little bit of give, but when I make that really good bread and I eat it, it reminds me of like a velvety tripe texture, and it's just so amazing. It's fantastic. Yeah, I get excited, I call everybody, I'm like, I did it again, you know? No one's ever done it. Haven't tried. Gerard, even the master baker, Gerard, he couldn't do it. Velvety tripe. Vegan tripe. When I first opened the bakery, nobody really wanted my bread. Nobody wanted to buy it. It wasn't that good anyway, so I don't blame them. But I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I knew how to make bread, and then I go and open a bakery and found out I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. No idea. There's so much more to it. So I couldn't really give away bread. I tried selling it, and people were like, eh. And I tried giving it away, and they were like, nah, not really. And then the pandemic happened. So I opened the bakery in January 1st, 2020, and then the lockdown happened in like late February or March. And I had went on Reddit and made a post because I didn't have, I had a lot of free time because I wasn't baking that much bread, and I had a lot of flour, and people were out of a job because they had to stay home. And so I went on Reddit and I made a post on there saying that, hey, you know, if anybody's having trouble with money and whatnot and they need some food, you know, I'll bake you a loaf of bread, and no questions asked, you know, kind of just out there to support people if they need it. And then the community, I think when they found out that I supported the community, they started to support me, and I didn't have to worry about selling bread anymore. People started buying the bread. It was fantastic. Would that happen in another community outside of Westford? I'm sure. There's lots of communities in the world, but I don't think Westford's unique in that aspect. But I think it's just unique because I'm here and Westford's here and the people of Westford are here. So that's what makes it unique. And I'm thankful that they buy my bread, because here I am. I'm gonna make kimchi and talk to you. I think that Peter emailed me and said, hey, can I offer your bread to my customers in the CSA? I think. It could be wrong. I might have been like, Peter, please, can you help me sell this bread? I don't know. Did you interview Peter too?
Oh, hey there. I'm Peter Jenkins, and my farm is Cat's Meow Farm in Westford. Our house was built in the 1980s, and it used to be the land was at one point before that called the Pigeon Farm, and it was probably subdivided in the 80s. Mr. Pigeon would, not sure what he grew, but it was much bigger than the land is now 10-acre lots. It was probably 50 or 100 acres of solid farmland before. And then before that, I'm not sure. I know that Westford is often thought of as a town where the soil is too thin to farm. Bedrock is a few feet down, sometimes a few inches, and it's full of rocks, and it's heavy clay, but it still produces great produce. It's interesting that in the Westford, or in the NOFA, Vermont, the Northeast Organic Farmers Association has a list of all the organic farms around the state by town. Westford only has maple sugar farms listed, so kind of goes to show what the land, what most people are doing is like forests and forest land rather than trying to grow stuff on farms here.
You talked about how becoming certified organic is pretty difficult. Is that still a goal of yours in the future?
Yeah, I don't know if I will do it. I think the thing that I care about for farming is, I don't use anything that wouldn't be approved by organic certification standards. So, no pesticides or herbicides or chemical fertilizers. But I think the more important thing for me is just having my customers, my CSA members know, like, be local, know the farm, know what I do, come and see the practices so they can judge for themselves that I'm doing a good job. And I think organic certification can be important to hold people to a standard, but I don't think it's necessary for everyone, especially at a really small scale. I've done CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and that's where members buy a share in the farm at the start of the season, and that means they pay a lump sum early when I have a lot of expenses of buying seeds and supplies for the farm for the coming growing season, and then they just pay that one time and then come and pick up weekly bag or weekly share of produce, a selection of produce every week through the growing season. That's my favorite way to farm and support the community. The farmers market is fun. It's, you get to interact with other farmers and vendors who are here, and more Westford community members who are not CSA members already. And then I've sold at the Westford Country Store, not this year, but last year. Sometimes bring produce from here to the Westford food shelf, which is a monthly food shelf at the Westford Common Hall, just up the hill behind us. So this morning I dropped off some produce from the farm there to support people who need some help with paying for food.
Everything but tomatoes.